Simple 2-5-1. That was a 2-5-1 in B flat. C minor 7, F7, and B flat major. Or B flat major 6-9 in this case. Now what we want to talk about here is continuing on with our idea of line form connection. Now the one thing that I alluded to but didn't get into specifically, and I want to do that now, is the difference between guide tones, target tones, and of course there are passing tones. First of all, we have to understand what a cadence is. A cadence is like the 2-5-1. Now in typical classic music theory, it's 4-5-1. But in jazz, we use the 2 chord instead of the 4. There's reasons for that, because they have the same notes except for the root. So 2-5-1. Okay, so we're going to stick with that as an example of 4 guide tones. So the guide tones are the 3rd and the 7th, as I've mentioned before. Now you could use the 5th as well, but what I'm talking about here, or you could use the root, but the root sounds kind of white bread. So let's stick with the 3 and the 7 and maybe the 5. Okay, so if we're playing the 2 chord here, the C minor 7, the 3rd of the C minor 7 is our beginning note, downbeat note. That's our guide tone. Okay, it's going to guide the rest of the notes. That's the flat 3rd of the chord. No matter what we put in there, let's say we're going to use 8th notes. So whatever we put in there, okay, added some notes to that. Those are the notes following the guide tone to make it a nice even, let's say we're doing 1 measure each of these chords. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we had 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or, that was what I believe I played. There is the and they're going to go to the first beat of the next measure, and then we're going to go to the 3rd of that chord. The 3rd of that chord right here is this A. Okay? And now we want to play something around that and somehow end up on our target tone. Now what is our target tone? Well, our target tone will be the 3rd, 5th, or the root. Usually the 3rd and the 5th sound better. And those are the target tones. Those belong to a authentic cadence, as they say. There's such a thing as an incomplete. So, but that's different. We're going to talk about that in another video. So we're on the 3rd of the F7. So what if I played? Oops, I ended that too soon. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and there's the downbeat of the B flat. And I ended that on the E note, which is the 3rd of the B flat. So, and I just happened to use a diminished arpeggio there for that. I'll explain the arpeggios, I'll explain the other things of why we're plugging in other things. But we want to keep our eye on the guide tone, and then the target tone. So in this idea, it was target tone, guide tone, the flat 3rd, into the F7, the 3rd, that's our guide tone, and then the 3rd of the B flat. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay? That's what we got here. I keep playing that extra note there. That's not what I wanted to play. So let's try that again. Okay, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. Now what if we want to do on the let's say the flat 7 of each chord. So B flat is the 7th of the C minor. The E flat is the 7th of the F, 7. But we're not going to resolve it to the 7th of the B flat. That's not really a good resolution note, unless you're finishing something at the end of a song usually, and but we'll talk about that as well at another time. But let's say we use that same idea. Flat, 7, same concept, but I'm just starting it on the flat 7. I believe that was the exact line. Okay, and that first note is our guide tone. Then we got to the and of the 4 here, and we're going to go into the flat 7 of the F. And we're only a half step away from it in this fingering. So here I go with this chromatic again. There we are. Now that, again, I just used the diminished, but I started it here on the flat 7. And then I ended it here on the root of the B flat. Made sense. Your ear can tell. So in this one, we have a nice ending point on the root, but what if we're going to end it on the 5th? What about ending it on the 5th, like then we could end that on the 5th. You want to try to think of where you're going to be in the area of the guitar for these chords, and that would be based on your chord shapes, of course, and knowing the chord forms along the neck. What if I wanted to do it with the 5th? Let's say there's the 5th of the F7. I started on the 5th of the C minor, and now I am on the 5th C of the F7, and then I could descend. Again, I'm using diminished. It's a favorite of mine. And now we want to resolve, and we have two options here. We could resolve down a half step to the 3rd of the of the B flat, or we could resolve to the 5th. Either one works well. I descended wrong. Kind of like the 5th myself, although that would work as well. Either one of those. But again, you want to keep your eye out for where you are on your fretboard as you're making up the lines. Now we'll talk next time about the stuff you put in between, but I just want to make sure that you understand guide tones, thirds, or thirds ended on the 5th. You could end on the root, the 5th, or the 3rd of the tonic chord. You wouldn't have to do, like I said, the flat 7, the natural 7. Unless it was the very, very end of the song. Anyway, let's move forward. On our next video, we'll talk about all the material that you plug in to create the line in between the guide tone and the target tones. But remember, guide tones, 3rd and 7th, 5th. Target tone, root, 3rd, 5th. Okay? Alright. See you next time.